many of the great founders of this country all received a classical education. So whether you're talking about St. Augustine, or St. Thomas Aquinas, or St. Therese of Lisieux, or if you're talking about Benjamin Franklin, or Thomas Jefferson, or George Washington, all of these folks had a classical education. Now what's different about a classical education compared with the way you all have been educated, or for example, the way I have been educated, because I also did not receive a classical education. You read a lot of primary sources. Do you all know what the word primary means, primary sources? Don't be shy. Yes. What does it mean to say that you're reading primary sources? Yes.
Reading from the first person?
Yes, first person. So it means like an author, the person that actually wrote a text. So if you're reading the Declaration of Independence, if you're reading the U.S. Constitution, that's a primary source. Who wrote those documents? Does anyone know who did a lot of the writing for the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson, that's exactly right. If you're reading St. Augustine's Confessions, that's reading a primary source. If you're reading Story of the Soul by St. Therese of Lisieux, that's a primary source. Now, classical education focuses on primary sources because classical education figures that the best ideas come from the masters, the people that wrote these works. So instead of reading textbooks that basically contain these ideas or basically try to put them in a short synopsis, you read the words of the great masters themselves. Now, what else is different about classical education? When I was in school, I did a lot of note-taking. I did a lot of writing. My teachers would lecture most of the time, and occasionally they would ask us questions, but for the most part I did a lot of the note-taking. In the classical education, you, the student, are the ones who are participating the most. Your teacher acts more as a moderator, someone who is basically engineering a discussion about the primary source. So if your assignment, for example, was to read part of St. Therese of Lisieux's Story of the Soul, you would come to class having accomplished your assignment, and your teacher is going to ask you a question or two that's going to begin a discussion. And then your teacher is going to be interested to make sure that everyone in the classroom shares his or her idea about what's taking place, about what their thoughts are on St. Therese's work, about whether they agree with another student's point of view or perspective, or whether they have something different to offer. And this is called classical education. It's a beautiful thing. The reason why it's a beautiful thing is because you, the student, really own your education. And you have the chance to articulate your own ideas and to express your ideas based on what you're learning and what you're studying. Okay? Yes. Question? Okay, I thought you had your hand up. Now, another thing about classical education is that you study languages in a very serious way. If you're going to O'Hara already, you're going to study modern language. You might study Spanish, you might study French, you might study Mandarin Chinese, you might study German. But in this program, you also get a chance to study Latin. Have you all studied any Latin here?
No.
Why is it a good thing, perhaps, to study Latin? Yes.
SATs.
SATs, that's exactly right. What else? Why else?
It also helps with your grammar.
Helps with your grammar, that's exactly right. What else? Sorry, say again? The root of all these, many of these European languages. So if you're going to study French, if you're going to study Spanish, if you're going to study Portuguese, if you're going to study Italian, by the way, you can study Italian, I believe, also over here. A lot of these languages have their roots, their base roots in Latin. Now, do you all know that 50% of all English words have some base in Latin? So many of the words that you and I use on a regular basis have some derivative, have some origination in Latin. So this is why it was mentioned here. It's very good for SATs. If you want to get into a good school, if you want to do well on your SATs and your ACTs, it's important to have a strong vocabulary, and Latin gives you that as well. See what else I want to share with you about this program. Okay, this program basically gives you the best that Western civilization has to offer to you. So you're studying ideas in literature. Again, whether you go back, I forgot to mention this, you're going to start very early. You're going to start before the revelation of Jesus Christ. You're going to start with the ancient Greeks. So you're going to be reading Homer's Iliad, Homer's Odyssey, Virgil's Aeneid. You're going to be reading these ancient texts that the great Greeks gave us and that the Romans gave us. And you're basically being able to show how these ideas help formulate Western thought. All the while, you're going to be studying history, and you're going to be studying these languages, you're going to be studying math and science. The first person that brought us geometry, Euclid. You'll actually read Euclid's work on geometry. You'll study a lot of these things, and you'll see how they basically cross-pollinate and how they help us to understand various disciplines. When you study theology, you're going to start with the Old and New Testament, and then you'll go into church history, early church history. You'll see how the early fathers basically unpacked the revelation that the Holy Spirit gives us, that Jesus taught us while he was in his ministry here on earth. And then you'll go into apologetics. Does anyone know what apologetics is? It comes from the Greek word apologia. Does anyone know what that word means? It means defense. Defense of what? Defense of the faith. Defense of the Holy Catholic faith. You'll learn how to defend your faith. Again, you learn all these things because not only is it good for you and for your soul and for your end, which is to be with God in heaven, but it also gives you the ability to express your ideas, to articulate your thoughts. And this is what everyone in the real world workplace wants to see you persevere. They want folks who are leaders who can share their ideas, articulate them both in written form and also in verbal form. So in this program, you get the opportunity to get up in front of your classmates. When I was growing up, I hated getting up in front of my classmates. Sometimes it's no fun right now because you get worried, you get stressed out. But in this program, you get up in front of your classmates, and not that you become so used to it that it doesn't stress you out. It's not a problem. And these are the types of skills that people, whether in the area of business, whether if you want to go into medicine, if you want to go into law, if you want to go into architecture, if you want to become a teacher one day or a professor, these are the skills that are prized. And the upper echelon colleges and universities where you all can get an excellent start, these are the skills that are coveted by students in these areas. Now I have here a 4-page brochure that Ms. Copa is going to hand out to you. So all of you 8th graders that are going to O'Hara, you should take a look at this. Take it home to your parents. And on the back, you'll see that not only is my information, but also Mr. Fertile, more importantly, Mr. Tom Fertile, the president of Cardinal O'Hara's information is on the back. So you might want to contact him, have your parents contact him, call the admissions office, tell them that you're interested in learning more about this program, and you can certainly sign up for it for the fall. Those 7th graders, as you begin to think about O'Hara as a possibility, this is a great opportunity that's sweeping Catholic education in this country right now. It's basically the hottest trend in Catholic education. And you will see that right here at St. Laurence School, and other elementary schools like this, is the first opportunity in the Philadelphia area for folks to jump into this education. And you'll find in 5 or 10 years, when you get a little bit older and you look back, that this is something that was very important that was beginning to sweep across America. So any questions that you all might have for me? Yeah.
I have a question because I'm the ELA teacher. I find the reading of books is just not the way students have a difficult time reading. It used to be. So I'm thinking that maybe may get them more interested in reading if you're reading in first person and primary sources, and also I'm hoping that may spark an interest in reading, which I see for the years as a teacher has been kind of a lost skill.
It does, and I agree with you, and I think it has something to do with the way that we approach textbooks. So oftentimes textbooks just really aren't that interesting. But the way that a teacher, using the Socratic dialogue, this is the method of discussion that I shared with you all, the way that a teacher implements the Socratic dialogue, they might even come to class one day and they might say, all right, have you read pages 15 to 35? Would John please read the first passage on page 22? And after you read about a paragraph or two, then your teacher will formulate a discussion with everyone in the classroom, and you can see how exciting the ideas in the text are and how they come alive. And in the end, what's important is that you're basically appropriating these ideas and you're sharing them with your classmates. And you don't attack the person because you don't like their idea, because you don't like them. But what you do is you learn how to be critical. You develop critical thinking skills. You learn how to be critical of an argument when there's a flaw in it. And that's another great skill that this education teaches you. And very much so, I was not a reader growing up. I didn't start reading really until I got into late high school or early college. But if you're a person that hasn't enjoyed reading, hasn't enjoyed your education, this is a game changer. This is something that's very exciting and will show a lot of A lot of folks just how beautiful education really is. Again, the other thing about classical education, it teaches you to enjoy and to appreciate education. So education is something that we have our whole lives, and when you're in school, you're learning how to educate yourself. And it's something, as you begin to grow older, that you figure out you know less and less. But if you learn to appreciate education, then it's an opportunity to know, you get exposed to all different kinds of ideas, and you learn to basically study things that interest you. Any other questions? Yes?
What clubs do you guys have?
Okay, very good. They have almost every club that you can imagine. So whether you want to get into forensics, whether you wanted to, if you want to be in a chess club, whether you wanted to basically help people, and many of the service clubs that they have service clubs where they help people in soup kitchens, and they help people that need time and attention, and handicap handicap shelters, things like that. There's all kinds. I don't have a list of myself here. There's all kinds of clubs and opportunities. If you're in this program, you can be in any sport. You can do any sport that's offered at O'Hara, and you can be in any club at O'Hara. Yes, you can find that on the website. I'm sorry I don't have the full list.
What are some of your biggest sports?
So some of the biggest sports would definitely include volleyball and basketball, men's women's basketball, football, there's lacrosse. They have pretty much every sport that's offered at any Catholic school that you can imagine. Softball, baseball.
I have a question with the criteria
Sure.
the criteria is to get into.
So here's another thing. So this is weighted at the honors level, but it doesn't mean that anyone who doesn't have a desire can't be in this program. So I myself, again, I think God has a sense of humor. I was not a very good student when I was in middle school. I was a C student, but God gives people opportunities. If you have a desire to try this program, you can be a C+ student. You can still do very well if you're willing to commit to it. And if you have support at home, and basically if you buy into the time that it takes to do the work. But it's not any harder than any other program that you would be in O'Hara. It just takes dedication. Any other good questions? All right. Mrs. Cope is going to hand out a brochure to anyone who's interested. Certainly the 8th graders that are already going to O'Hara, you ought to take one of these, talk to your parents about it, call up Mr. Fertile. And any 7th graders who might be interested at all, please take a copy of this. I thank you for your time today. And you all have Thursday and Friday off this week?
Yes.
Oh, you have a beautiful short week.
Yes.
Happy Feast of Ascension on Thursday. God bless. Thank you.